nothing you want is going to happen in your timing. It almost never does. How many times have you wanted to happen, something to happen at a particular time and date and it didn't happen? You know how many times that's happened to you? It happens all the time.
Waiting on God does not mean doing nothing. Waiting on God means not going outside of God to do something. In other words, staying within his guidelines and boundary. When you are doing that, then God's clock of timing is activated on your behalf because you're cooperating with him, his character, his content based on his word, and his methodology. When you're operating in that, then his clock is ticking to the best time in order to respond to our prayers. And remember, God's timing is always perfect. So wait on the Lord, but not by sitting still doing nothing unless there's nothing to do. But God is often waiting on us so that we don't have to wait much longer on him. Let's get busy and speed up his clock.
We're all waiting for something, waiting for a dream to come to pass, or waiting for our health to improve, waiting for a child to turn around. And when it's taken a long time and we don't see anything happening, it's easy to get discouraged and think that it's not meant to be. But the scripture says in Hebrews 10, patient endurance is what you need now. Then you will receive all that God has promised.
He did not just call, but then he gave them power and authority. It means that what he was calling them to do, he was simultaneously equipping them with supernatural power to be able to pull it off. So it's good news for anybody in the room that you feel like you've got a dream that is way over your head. You've been called to do something you don't have the money for, you don't have the time for, you don't have the patience for, you don't have the gifting for, you don't have the talent for, you don't have the connections for. The good thing and the great thing about our God is that he does not call people who are already equipped. He calls you. And then for the people that say yes, he equips them with what they need for the calling.
So when God answers and he delivers something that is different than what we saw in our head, sometimes we don't know how to handle it because the answer doesn't look like the prayer. Just because God didn't do what you thought he was going to do doesn't mean that God isn't doing something in your life. Get rid of your depression, because hidden in your depression and your discouragement is arrogance. Because you ordered God around and he didn't follow your orders, now your feelings are hurt because God didn't follow your orders. But God did not create you to order him. God created you so he could order you. Oh, y'all don't hear what I'm saying. So just because you asked it, you expected it, you envisioned it, you thought it was supposed to happen, if God didn't do it, it wasn't supposed to happen. I said, if God didn't do it, it wasn't supposed to happen. Because God has a plan for your life. And if God would have done what you expected him to do, it would have messed up the plan. God had a plan for your life, and it wasn't time for him to overthrow Rome. He ultimately overthrew the powers of Rome outside of Jerusalem. He brought it down to naught. But it was in God's own timing, not your time. So you don't have a right to be bitter with God because he didn't do what you thought he was going to do. The law of the Lord is perfect, converting the soul. What God has for you is for you. What God has planned for you is for you.
And I don't know who needs to hear this right now, but at the moment you're in, it doesn't look like God's doing anything, but what seems mundane and what seems normal and what seems like you do just because you're there, that may be the very thing that God is using to shape you, to train you, and to make you into who he's called you to be. And Matt, Lori, I am a product of moments where God used where I was to shape me, and then he put me in a foreign environment. And I just would encourage people right now, if you're serving that youth group or serving in that senior citizens home, or if you're serving your family, or if you're serving the vision God's called you to do and you don't see the progress yet, it's okay. God's got tomorrow. You gotta work today. Like if you work today and you're faithful over today and you pray over today and you find joy in today, God says the birds don't worry about tomorrow. It got enough worries of itself, but be focused right here and today. And I just want to let everybody know that our faith today matters to God.
Where there is no prayer, there is no contact. And where there is no contact, you do not get what God has already declared for you to have, known as his will. Many people want God to send rain in their lives, called blessings, without wanting God to change their lives. They want God to do something for them while they remain idolaters. And remember, idolatry is any unauthorized noun, person, place, or thing that you look to meet your needs. It is any unauthorized thing. So an idol can be a person, an idol can be a place, an idol can be stuff, money, possessions, an idol can be a job, an idol can be your career, it can be your position. An idol can be any noun, person, place, or thing, and you're looking to that to be your source. That's an idol. So what God has are folks who worship him on Sunday and date idols all week long. Once you can tie it to his word, tie it to your spirit, and you've labored in prayer about it, you don't quit because you heard nothing. You pray till you get an answer, because an answer is coming in due season. Because when God comes through for you, even though you've had to wait for it, you'll be like Caleb, who said, I started when I was 40. Now I'm 85. But God has given me strength at 85 that I had at 40, and it was worth waiting on him for my change to come. God can take you and give you strength for whatever he's going to bring your way when you suck it down from up there, down here, through the effectual, fervent prayer.
You're trying to figure out, Lord, you told me that I was going to be replenished. You told me that I was going to be refreshed. You told me that you had something that you wanted to give to me. Why would you take me here to this place where I'm being pressed down by a multitude of issues and concerns and frustrations? There's something overwhelming me that is bigger than what I feel like I have the capacity to handle. Why would you bring me here? This tells us that the story of the feeding of the 5,000 is not just about the 5,000. It's also about the disciples. It's not just about the multitude getting fed. It's about the disciples being fed physically, spiritually, emotionally. And it tells us that the 5 loaves and the 2 fish are the gift to the multitude. But it's the multitude that's the gift to the disciples. Because the multitude is what's going to make them have to finally open up their drawer, pull out the treasure that they would have otherwise ignored, place it in the hands of a multiplying master who's going to show them what it looks like when he takes their little bit and makes it a lot. There is no replenishing like watching God multiply your loaves and fish.
God declares unto you, I'm not thinking what you're thinking. And my ways of getting you there are not your way. I swore I was going to bless you, but I didn't tell you how. I swore I would bring you out, but I didn't tell you through whom. I thought it was going to come through the bishop. I thought it was going to come through the music. I thought your thoughts, get them out the way.
So everything you ask God for, it comes in a process. It's going to happen, especially if you write it down. That's the secret. Everything you want has to be written. This is a principle of success that isn't often taught. It's the never giving up that hurts people the most. You pray for something, you ask God for something, then when it don't happen in your time, then you create these human excuses. Well, I guess it wasn't meant to be. I guess it wasn't the Lord's will. It'll never happen. It just didn't happen in your timing. But I can almost assure you, nothing you want is going to happen in your timing. It almost never does. So everything you ask God for, it comes in a process. It's going to happen, especially if you write it down. That's the secret. Everything you want has to be written. This is a principle of success that isn't often taught, but it's in the Bible. There's a scripture that tells you that you must do this. It's Habakkuk 2:2. Just go read it. Habakkuk 2:2 says, write the vision and make it plain, so that he who reads it will run to it. And even though it tarry means take a long time, wait for it, for surely it will come at an appointed time. Everything you write on paper that God puts in your mind and your imagination, he puts it in your imagination because that's a sign of things to come. That's what he puts. Everything for you, he places it in your imagination. If you write it down and keep the faith, you'll get everything on that paper. I'm just, listen, this is not a magic trick. This ain't no theory of mind. This is how it works. But everything I put out comes back to me because I put it out with the expectation that the law of attraction works, that write the vision and make it plain so that he who reads it will run to it, and even though it tarry, wait for it, for surely it will come at an appointed time. That's a fact. That's in your Bible. I dare you tonight to go home and read Habakkuk 2:2. I dare you.
God is going to do something like you have never seen him ever do before. And so he says, I will show you. I will show you that I will provide for you. I will show you that I can heal you. I will show you that I can bring you out. I will show you that I can supply all your needs. I will show you that there's a method to what looks like madness in your life. I will show you why your family rejected you. I will show you why your father forsook you. I will show you why your mother didn't raise you. Stop murmuring and complaining just because you're hungry for something that you didn't get. I will show you. I already considered what they weren't gonna be in your life. I will show you. Not your mother, not your father, not your sister, not your brother. I will show you. Keep on walking with me and I will show you, because you will not recognize what I'm getting ready to do in your life, because you have never passed this way before. You have never passed this way before. And if you can put up with the trauma of uncertainty, eventually I will show you I got a plan to work this out that you haven't seen. It's not on your blueprints, it's not on your drawings, it's not on your schedule, it's never been done before. I am going to do something new in you. It's not going to be like your first pastor, it's not going to be like your childhood. I will show you. Look at somebody and tell them God's going to show you. Don't worry about it. God's going to show you. You don't understand it right now. That's okay. God is going to show you. You don't recognize God's hand in where you're at right now, but God's going to show you. It doesn't look like God is with you, but God is going to show you. You feel like God has forsaken you, but God is going to show you. You don't recognize anything around you. Not a street sign, not a road marker. You don't know where you are. You're at a stage in your life of uncertainty. You have never been this age before. You have never been at this stage before. It's foreign to you. You don't know what to do in this season of your life. You tried to do what you used to do. You can't do what you used to do. You tried to do what you're gonna do, and you can't do what you're gonna do, but stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. I will show you. When it's time for you to know, you're gonna know. When it's time for you to see, you're gonna see it. When it's time for you to understand it, you're gonna understand it. Until then, walk by faith and not by sight. When it's time for your eyes to open, they're gonna open. When it's time for you to see, you're gonna see it. But I told you to go to the pool, and I knew you were blind, and I want you to grope after it and feel after it. And when you get to the water, I will.
Just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it's not going to happen. God is faithful. He heard your request. He sees you standing in faith. He hears you thanking Him when you could be complaining. What you're believing for is on the way. When you prayed in faith, according to God's will, He put the promise on the schedule. He already set the time to bring it to pass. You may not see any sign of it. Nothing looks like it's changing, but God is working behind the scenes. Things are happening right now that you can't see. He's lining up the right people, arranging the good breaks, the healing, the freedom, the abundance. It's just a matter of time before you see what God is up to. But here's the key. Before the promise is fulfilled, you have to pass the discouragement test, where you're waiting and you don't see anything happening. Doubt comes saying, man, it would have happened by now. It's too late. You'll never get well, never meet the right person, never see your family restored. This is where many people miss their miracle. They get discouraged and think that God has forgotten about them. What you do while you're waiting will determine whether you see the promise. That's why God said you need patient endurance. Not just patience, but endurance. That means you're not going to be talked out of it. You're going to keep thanking God when you don't see any sign. You're going to keep believing when every circumstance says there's no way. When you do that, God says you will receive all that He promised. Not some, not most of it, not 90%. No, you'll see the fullness of the blessing. You may be in a waiting season now. You're tempted to give up on what God has put in your heart, settle for less. No, don't water down your dreams. Don't let delays convince you to lower your expectations. Just live with the sickness. It's okay to be by yourself. You'll never meet a spouse. Or you can't start that business. You're doing all right. Just accept where you are. No, God didn't put that promise in you to tease you, to get just your hopes up and then never let it happen. He put it there because He has every intention of bringing it to pass. You have to dig your heels in and have some holy determination. Your attitude should be, I'm in it for the long haul. I will not give up. I will not let doubt, people, delays, circumstances, bad breaks talk me out of what God put in my heart. You have to have a made-up mind. We're all going to wait, but how we wait makes all the difference. And here's what I've learned. When it's taken a long time, it's because what God has for you is going to be better than you thought, more rewarding, more fulfilling. Don't despise the waiting period. God knows what's best for us. Sometimes we're waiting because another person is not ready, or we're waiting because God is getting us prepared to handle the weight of blessing. It's going to be a big blessing, but it's going to require greater maturity, greater character. We all want everything fast, me included, but God knows when the right time is. One of the best things I've learned is to trust God's timing. If it hasn't happened yet, then it hasn't been the right time. But I can assure you, when God is ready, all the forces of darkness cannot hold Him back.